All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Loose Lugs. Here again with co-host Dustin Lewis. How we doing, Dustin?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
Good. Had a good weekend. A lot of NASCAR stuff to talk about. I just want to point out first that we're represented well this weekend. I think everybody was happy with the clash. There was a few things I was like the coverage was off. Fox coverage was. The mics were wrong. The camera was off. It was a little weird, honestly, but I think the clash was well represented, and I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I share that same opinion. Me, mom, dad, we all watched the race together, and even I was saying this is really odd production quality for Fox. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but we have that Roku, and we live stream the race and all that. Well, during the Command to Fire engines, the audio and the video were so desynced from one another. Like it was a 10-second desync from both mediums. It was so weird, and then it just fixed itself. It was so odd.
To me, the weirdest thing was when they were recognizing the grand marshals. Nobody walked out when they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of I don't want to say it's an oversight, but it's a rehearsal issue, if nothing else. And it was just sloppy. And, hopefully it's just because of the first event. Maybe they've, replaced a lot of people. I'm going to chalk it up to that. And we'll see how the Daytona Speed Weeks goes. I mean, we'll have starting Tuesday, you'll have regular qualifying. Thursday, you'll have the duels. So you're going to get some time between Fox and Fox Sports 1 to see, if there's an improvement. If not, I mean, somebody needs to step in because I felt like we did it from our computers here. It was pretty sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting to professional. We're not professional yet. They're supposed to be professionals.
Yeah.
I don't know. Opening thoughts. What stood out to you?
I'll tell you one thing that stood out to me was the numbers. Watching the heat races and seeing, the numbers so small right up against the fender well, I was like, this is going to take a minute for me to get used to this. This is so weird looking, but I'll tell you this much. The cars raced really good around that racetrack. It was definitely old school, beating and banging, short track racing. There's no doubt about it. I will say this. I saw a lot of comments of people, post-race. It was race was still fresh on everybody's mind. Everyone was saying that the drivers were playing safe. And I'm like, did you not watch Heat Race 4?
Nobody was being safe.
I mean, Heat Race 4 went on forever. Nobody was playing it safe.
Safe was not the word. I mean, they may have played it a little safer, in the first 3 heats, but between Heat 4 and then last chance qualifying races, nobody was racing safe. Ty Dillon, I was quite shocked that they didn't disqualify him for how he was racing. I mean, no, you want to be aggressive, but he was overboard. He was throwing it in there and just praying every single turn. They got him for the restart thing, but I was surprised they didn't DQ him before then. I know that you want that kind of excitement, but I think you want it to be spread around, here and maybe that driver, not all the same driver. I mean, they pointed out in that last chance qualifier, he was in every single caution, all of them. And I was like, man, how do they allow that to happen like that? I mean,
I don't know. I thought that was me and Dad had a good laugh about it. Every single caution he was involved in it. We thought that was funny, but one thing that really caught my eye was the 2311 cars. They both had a real good shot of making it in real easy. I mean, Bubba was always up in the mix, and then you had Bush, who was extremely fast. And then you had that one incident that took one of them out. Denny Hamlin didn't look very happy about one of his cars that could have got into the clash, not
No,
making it in.
he was upset. John Suggs asked a couple questions. He said, "What's your thoughts on Mayweather's NASCAR team this year? You think they earn a spot? His driver is Kaz Gralla, 4 career Cup Series starts and finished 20th in last season's Daytona 500." I would say yes, they're going to earn that spot. Kaz Gralla is a good restrictor plate driver. He doesn't have proven success in the Cup level yet, but he's the guy. If you remember a few years ago in the Xfinity Series, he won the race with a last lap dash to the bottom, and it was taken away, yellow line infraction. But he was, I think, I'd have to look again, but I think he was either third or fourth going into the tri-oval in that race, and they had a 2-car battle for the lead, and he went under them and just went below the line, so they took it away. He knows how to get around these restrictor plate tracks. And then Tony Ura Jr., a former crew chief, I will just say this: if it was Tony Uri Sr. calling the shots, I'd feel a little better. We talked about this last show with DEI. Nothing against Tony Uri Jr. Racing is in his blood. It's his family's, just like the Earnhardts. But when Tony Uri Sr. was on the pit box for Dale Jr., I mean, they were on top of the world. That was when they had their 8-win season. That's when they were looking like title contenders. And the year that he retired and Tony Uri Jr. took over, things really started to slide. And you could see it in the frustration and communication. Dale Jr. was always yelling at Tony Jr. for something.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if Senior was the one calling the shots, I'd be a little more confident. But they're going to get a spot. I'm trying to get that Floyd Mayweather interview. We're pushing hard. We've gotten in contact with their PR people at the Money Racing team. It's going to be a while if we get it. They're a busy team, and Floyd doesn't just sit around and count his money like it looks like on Facebook. He's a pretty busy man. I do think he makes it. What do you think, Dustin? You think they're going to make the 500 by qualifying in?
Well, if this was last year, I'd probably say no. But with how, I mean, you can't really judge how the Daytona 500 qualifying is going to go based on what we saw yesterday. But you saw a lot of drivers a lot of teams that you wouldn't normally see running up front. Now, granted, it was quarter-mile track for fun race. Maybe people were just, playing it safe like some people thought, and some other people were trying to be aggressive. But, I mean, they stand a good chance. Like you said, Kaz, he's real good super speedway driver. He knows how to get around it. I think they stand a good shot, but they may have to race their way in with the duels.
John also said, what about Dana White's team? Dana White doesn't have a team per se. He sponsored Trackhouse's team. I believe he's the sponsor on Ross Chastain's car for the 500, but he's not technically affiliated in any way with that team. That's Pitbull and Justin Marks co-owning that team. And that team's going to make a big leap this year. I was surprised that, as hard as Chastain was running in the Clash, he didn't make the field. I really thought he was going to get in. And then I expected a little better out of Suarez, and didn't quite work out. But those guys look racy. We'll get into that when we start breaking down the Clash here in just a second. But I know that it's an uphill battle for these 2-car teams going up against the Gibbs and the Hendrick and the Stuart Haas guys. But they're a team that I look at as making a big leap, and they're going to win races this year. Maybe only one, maybe two. I think Ross Chastain definitely gets a win this year.
I could agree with that.
Yeah. I think he looked ready to win one last year with Chip Ganassi. Chip was halfway out the door, I feel like, for the last few years. And it made sense that he sold the team. I mean, if you look at where Chip Ganassi has all of his teams, he's got a foot in every single large scale racing there is. I mean, IndyCar, uh, IMSA, Rolex, all of it. He's got cars in all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a busy man, and NASCAR's paid bills for sure. But it's been a long time since Chip Ganassi was really, really competitive, and that was when Kyle Larson was still there and trying to pull a 2-car team by himself. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the Clash. Who are some guys that finished better than you expected? And give me one guy that really performed better than you would have expected, and one guy that you think really flopped expectation wise.
One guy that I will say really shocked me was Tyler Reddick. I mean, he did, to be fair, after 51 laps, the car did go pop, but that car was fast, very fast in the short run. Car got a little squirrely in the long run, but he managed to hold on to the lead. And I really think had he not had his transmission issues, he probably would have contended for the win for sure.
Yeah.
One guy that really flopped, I would say, like all the Stuart Haas guys again. I was really expecting them to kind of, do something, especially when I had two Fords in the top 5 for that betting for Fox Sports had going on. But Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney just couldn't do it. But but
I
that's
had to
besides the
laugh.
point.
I had to laugh at your picture. I'm sorry, man. That's funny, but like
Yeah,
you really got screwed on that one.
I really thought there'd be another Ford up there, but nope, there was only one. But besides the point, really and truly, the Fords, other than Logano, really did not show any speed. Logano was fast, but no one else was.
I will say a driver that far exceeded what I expected was Eric Jones. He came home 4th. He looked racy, but in practice he was great. Qualifying he was not very good, and then in the heats he held his own, made the race, uh, but he performed a lot better than I expected. I was looking at him to be somewhere between 10th and 14th, honestly. That's kind of where they average out if you have a full field, would be around 20th. So they definitely showed good strength, and it helps to have a teammate. They partnered with GMS Racing. It's now Petty GMS, and that's a team I'm going to watch this year. I don't have as expectation wise as optimism, but they are definitely going to do better than they did with just a 1-car team last year. With adding Ty Dillon in the 42, the driver I will definitely say flop is Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah.
Uh, Qualified awful. Didn't even. I mean, it was a smart move not to race in the last chance qualifier. He knew he was in, and it was a destruction derby. But he never showed me that he was there to win. It was like he was just sleepwalking through the entire event. So those will be my two. You can throw a lot of praise at both the RCR cars. I mean, Tyler Reddick, he looked like he was going to win. I mean, he was able to pull away when everybody else was, scrounging to keep position. And Austin Dillon, I believe he came home 3rd. Yeah, he came home 3rd. So I mean, and there at the end, he looked racy. He looked like he could get in there and catch Kyle Busch for 2nd. So
Yeah.
I would say team wise, they did really well. No other team had a complete team effort. I mean, Hendrick was all over the place. I mean, Chase was involved in a wreck, but Chase, as much as he dominated the practice sessions, he didn't show a whole lot during the race. Where did Austin Cindric finish?
Was he
I
in the
don't think
Clash?
he was in the Clash. I think he was out in the qualifiers. Yeah, no, he didn't make the race. He lost in the last chance race.
Now, I will say, talking about Austin Cindric, you want to talk a driver that was just sending it into the corners and using
Yeah.
everybody else as a brake? That kid was sending it into the corners.
Yeah, he was aggressive too. There was a few guys that I thought were overstaying their welcome, I'll say. Another one was not here. Yeah, Harrison Burton. Burton was kind of mixing it up with some guys, and I was like, man, this is a rookie. This is not what you want to do as a rookie. You're trying to make friends for the Daytona 500. That's not how you do it, because
No.
Harrison technically has teammates at Penske. I have been around the garage, and I will tell you they're not looked at as teammates. When
Yeah.
I was at Talladega, you had you've got different garage stalls set up for different cars. So you've got your feature cars like Hendrick, Gibbs, the big guys. They're
Mhm.
all together, and then Penske and all those. Penske had their cars together. The 21 was basically out by the hauler. It was not with the other cars. I mean, they have a technical alliance, but I'd say teammates that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Um, I know that they'll probably use each other for the 500, but which, by the way, they can bump draft again. That's going to be interesting. They
Ooh.
removed that rule. You can tandem draft. It's going to be fun.
I wonder how that's going to work, because with the Gen 6 cars, you couldn't really bump draft all that well. If you didn't hit them square in the middle, it was going to upset the lead car and wreck them. I wonder what's going to happen with these cars.
I think the Gen 6 had a rounder nose. It appears that this generation has more of a less tapered front end, and these cars have I forget what they call them. They have these things on the bottom of the car that are supposed to make them more aerodynamically sound. There's these
Diffuser.
spokes that come out the bottom, because one issue they were having is when you got to the back of somebody with the old car and you push that air under there, you're lifting their car up. One, you're removing downforce. So then any little tap, and of course they're going to go around. This
Hmm.
car, I think, they designed specifically to take away the downforce removal in the rear, making it
Yeah.
easier for drafting. So they have to believe that, otherwise they wouldn't have removed the rule about tandem draft. We're going to see 44 cautions and 22 laps if it's tandem and they don't handle well.
Yeah, the little piece at the bottom is called a rear diffuser.
There you go.
That's what that piece is called.
It's supposed to make the air, zip out more instead of go up under the deck lids.
Hmm.
We'll see. There's a
Yeah,
lot
we'll
to
see.
learn. They did a Daytona test, a couple weeks ago,
Hmm. Yeah, a
and
couple weeks ago.
they were slow.
Yeah,
They were slow.
very much slower than in previous years. That's the one thing I worry about with this new car, is it's going to be a little slower at the super speedways, because I watched the Daytona tests and I was like, these cars don't look like they're going that fast. I mean, with the previous generation, when you go to Daytona, when they got freight trained around the outside, I mean, you were seeing speeds of like really fast speeds, 200, 205 miles an hour. And these cars look like they were doing nowhere near that.
Yeah. Excuse me. Um, Another thing I was looking at earlier, Go Bowling they've renewed their sponsorship that came out today for the Glen.
Hey.
Um, Jesse Awuji Motorsports has teamed up with Team Chevy for the 2022 season in the Xfinity Series. Emmett Smith is going to be one of his, I guess, co-owners of the team, or an investor. Excuse me, I'm dying over here. That's going to be interesting because Jesse Awuji, I think he's a very talented driver. We just don't have anything to compare him to. We've seen such little evidence. He hasn't raced a ton, so it's a little quick to say that he's going to be the next NASCAR diversity driver to make it to the Cup Series. But I have faith. You know, he's
Oh
he's
yeah,
talented. Give the kid a chance and see what happens.
right. Yeah, I saw that pop up on my screen before the show started. I was like, hey, there's some news. And then I read, I was like, oh, cool, another team. That's good.
What else? The Clash talked about that. Let's preview the 500 a little bit. Um, we'll have Matt Tift on the show next week. He's the owner of Live Fast Motorsports, the number 78 Cup car. I talked to him last year um, around the Talladega race, and his thing was looking at next season. They were trying to piece things together because their biggest concern was at the time with the Gen 6 car, you could buy used parts left and right. These
Hmm.
big teams, they would refurbish something and sell it back because they don't use it anymore. The big teams use all new parts for the most part. So that was part of him making it work. Um, when I talked to him, the big thing he harped on was there are no used parts. There won't be any used parts. It's my understanding that the manufacturers are putting everything together except for the composite body right now. I mean, when they buy a car, they buy a car.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that they've, pieced enough together to make a run at this and hopefully do really well. I don't know how much it cost. I don't even want to know because it'd probably make me sick to know how much they spend on one car. But it's good to
Oh
see
yeah.
all one car teams, staying in NASCAR. Um, but yeah, we'll have him on next week. He's a good guy. I like Matt. Um, let's see, 500 preview. I really don't want to preview it right now. There's
Think it.
we know nothing.
Yeah, true. I was sitting here like, I don't know if we want to do this right now. We got a little bit of time between now and then. Although I
Joe,
have my predictions.
I have some predictions. I usually do my prediction after the dual races, like right after. Um, John Suggs, another statement. Did you feel like other racers should have gotten in the Hall of Fame before Junior? Most people say because of his dad's legacy helped him get in early. His dad's
uh,
legacy definitely helped. I would say there were drivers that deserved to get in before him. There are some guys that aren't in that raced with Lee Petty and that have won races and were excellent drivers, and they're not in yet. But I think Junior deserved the nod now for what he's done for NASCAR, not just his accomplishments, not just his 2 Daytona 500 wins or however you want to wrap his career up, 0 championships. The thing that put him in the hall for me, and I would love to ask him personally one day, when he told the world, when he left DEI, didn't know how things are going to work out, but when he told the world, I want to walk in my own shoes, not in my dad's, that is Hall of Fame worthy by itself. That's something that Kyle Petty didn't do when his dad was coaching him along. Uh, it's not something that most of these third or second generation drivers have done. Most of them have carved their own way a little bit. Junior totally drove a different style. Junior tried to do things that wouldn't get him compared to his father. He wanted to be his own man, and he made it work that way. And to me, that's what I feel makes him a Hall of Famer on top of the wins. What about you?
I have the same thought. I mean, like you said, the name helps a lot when it comes to his legacy, but like you said, when he stepped away from DEI, I mean, he could have stayed with DEI. He really could have. But when he decided to leave it, and then he goes on to go to Hendrick and he wins a few races, has some title contention seasons. I mean, sure he didn't win championships. He didn't win any championships, but he won 2 Daytona 500s. And I mean, it's hard to win one Daytona 500, but he did it twice with 2 different teams and 2 different cars. I mean, and not only that, I mean, we're not talking about just his NASCAR driving career. We're talking about his entire career when it comes to his involvement in NASCAR. You want to talk about an influential person when it comes to NASCAR? Junior is your guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about he's got Dirty Mo Media. He's got 2 really popular podcasts that run off of that. And it's solely NASCAR. You have the Dale Jr. Download and you have Door Bumper Clear. And not only that, you have Junior Motorsport, which is if not the premier team when it comes to the Xfinity Series. The guy's got a Hall of Fame career. I mean, in my eyes, he does. To a lot of people, he probably doesn't. But I mean, in my eyes, he has a heck of a NASCAR career, not just a driving career, but a whole career, including everything.
Yeah. And he'll probably get a chance at having his own cup team. I don't think the plan is to move JR Motorsports. I know there's been a lot of people have questioned, when is JR Motorsports move up? They don't move up as a whole team. I don't think there's enough employees because you have to understand JR Motorsports shares a lot of employees with Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, it's basically Hendrick's Xfinity team.
Mm-hmm.
So if they moved their guys, all 4 or just 2, whatever, to Cup, you'd be asking some guys to double dip, and they're not capable of necessarily doing that.
No.
So I think he'll get his chance as a Cup owner, but it won't be as, just JR Motorsports 4-car team. They might get a 1-car venture where they get a guy like Jimmy Johnson to come in and run his few races that he wants to run, because he's already said publicly, he'd love to come back. I'd love to see him back. I was never a Jimmy fan, but I don't care who you're a fan of. The guy's won 7 championships and what will be first ballot Hall of Famer career, period.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be nice to see him back, even if it's just 3 or 4 races a year. Put him in something that he wants to run in. JR Motorsports Cup entry. I'm saying it here.
Yeah, I agree. If there's any chance of Junior having a Cup Series team, which I don't doubt he will, I think it's going to be when all the bugs with this new next gen car, because we saw it in the Clash, get ironed out. Of course, with used parts not really being a thing anymore, I think it's going to come down to getting all those kinks in this next gen car worked out, everyone getting comfortable, and then, after I don't know, a few feeler seasons where he gets maybe 1 car and does a select few, and then he comes out with, all right, we're going to run the full season. These are our drivers. It's 2-car operation to start off with, but we want to be a big league team. It's going to be a little by little by little build up if he wants to be in Cup.
Right. I could see that too. And I really do. I actually wrote an article, and it's on Sports and Culture Media's website right now, about the cultural explosion. But really, you can even attest to that being a celebrity cultural influence explosion. You've got, I don't even want to say his name right now because he's in hot water, but Alvin Kamara is he's the liaison, I guess, cultural liaison to NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Pitbull and Trackhouse. That's from last year to this year. It's getting to be a normal. This year you got Floyd Mayweather starting his part-time team. I would love to see, because that's big money. Those guys are bringing in big money, and when you bring in that much money, Michael Jordan, 23XI Racing, you bring results. It might not happen right away, but when you put as much money as these guys are going to, you're going to hire the right people for the job, and you're going to get results.
Absolutely.
What year will NASCAR go all electric? It's coming, but I say at least another 8 to 10 years. I don't even know how to answer that. That's a good question.
My, my answer would be never, but I mean, I don't know.
Why don't you come back next week, John, and ask that question to Matt Tift? Because
That
he
would
would
be a
probably
good question.
have a decent answer for you where I don't, because I don't even know if it's, I mean, I know they've said they've done the research on it, but to my knowledge, they have not put any work into making the cars. I mean, we just got a new car and it's not electric. So it might be a while. That's a good question for him.
Yeah. As a team owner, I mean, if anyone's going to have a good answer other than a NASCAR higher up. But
anything else to cover?
I think we covered everything. We covered the Clash, gave a little teaser to the Daytona 500 preview.
Yeah, and next week we'll cover, a little more of the Daytona preview. I'm just not big on doing previews before, we even see the cars at the track. It's a little early.
Yeah.
Then you're just kind of guessing it. Your favorite driver is going to win. I'm not down with that.
Yeah. Even though I've already kind of made my predictions, I'm not ready to say, okay, this is what I think is going to happen. I'm still kind of this is what I think is going to happen, but I'm not quite positive.
Right. Well, I think that's it, man. I think we're good for this week. We'll be back a week from today, same time, and we will get you Matt Tift on the air. We'll get you ready for the Daytona 500 and the Speed Weeks. And I hope everybody has a good week.
Absolutely.
All right.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we're making a plays. We're talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces.